Jordan Wright and Jamie Pickett. I mean, this is a fight where we're talking about two guys who had, great showings on a debut-ish standpoint. I think Jamie Pickett's win against Patti on Dana White Contender Series, right? We're talking about those big hooks, really, really good striking. I think that, once he met a guy like, in Sooky, it's so crazy to see all these differences in game styles, right? Sooky got absolutely dominated last week, but in that fight, Jamie Pickett, man, if there's, some positives to take away from him in that fight, 100%, you have to give him credit for being able to take some of those big blows and stay in the fight. He was rocked quite a bit. Then you have those situations where he was actually, on the ground, taking a lot of ground and pound, maybe not so much power, but, he withstood a lot of damage for all that fight. So I'm impressed with, coming out of that Dana White Contender, seeing what he did against Sooky. I think there's a nice balance there somewhere where he can be a pretty good striker at this level. I think that he's getting a good fighter in Jordan Wright to test that against, because he seems to be that active, volume-based, pushing forward type of fighter, whereas Jordan Wright is looking for those quick shots, those counter shots. And you look at his fight against Buckley, man. I mean, by the end of that first round, he was pretty much done for, got completely destroyed at the start of that second. And I mean, that is everything that I think, Jamie Pickett's going to try to do as well. He might even have a bit more size than Buckley going into this one. And, Jordan has to be more confident. He has to bring that confidence back in terms of his striking to keep guys at bay. He's got to use his kicks more. I think against a guy like Ike Villanueva, who we're seeing turning into a much better fighter than he was against Jordan Wright, but that's kind of what he did. I think he was able to utilize the distance a bit more. He didn't let the fight get too close into boxing range, and even against the fence, he fought Buckley's fight and paid the price. I think that if he's able to avoid those quick rushes by Pickett, if he's able to get him into the later rounds and maybe exploit him with some good pot shots, good jabs, kicks to keep him at bay, hit the body a bit, get him tired. I think if you want to showcase that striking a bit, this is the perfect fight to do it. We talked about a bit more of his, wrestling and takedown defense. I mean, that's been really good for him, right? 100% takedown defense for Jordan Wright. So he likes to keep the fight standing. That much we know. But at the same time, if you're one of those guys that's in a position where, say, in a fight like Joaquin Buckley, would you want to be wrestling come second round almost immediately? Most likely, right? But I would say that this is one where he has a bit less of that power disadvantage and really has to kind of utilize those accurate strikes and be able to throw, with intention over the course of 3 rounds if he can't finish, because the worst thing to see is a guy get really far into the first and second rounds winning the fight, then maybe gas out because he's just so used to finishing and things like that. But with Jamie Pickett, I think that's where he kind of had a bit more success against a guy like Patti versus his fight against Sooky, right? We saw him smell blood, we saw him go in there and attack with those big hooks, whereas in his fight with Sooky, I mean, he got rocked a couple of times but was able to stay in the fight. So that's where I'm kind of hoping that we can see a bit more from both these guys. It's just, you see him do really well against guys that maybe they should be doing really well against, and then doing very bad against guys that they should be a bit more competitive against. And so that's where, for me, I think that Jamie Pickett has a bit more to prove, because we just saw what happened to Sooky against Park, who I think is a phenomenal fighter anyway. One of my favorite nicknames in the UFC, by the way, the Iron Turtle. But again, you go back and look at Jamie Pickett's classic fighter, right? Going into the Dana White Contender Series as a finisher, now fighting against top-notch contenders in the UFC. So we got to see some more of that action. They got to push the pace against a guy like Jordan Wright, man. You've seen what guys can do to him when they're pushing the fight to him and making him uncomfortable. And with Jordan Wright, man, use those kicks, keep these guys scared, man. Make sure they're not, willing to just run past your kicks and your punches to get right into you and start getting into boxing range and filling you up a little bit, getting up against the fence. Because even though your takedown defense looks great, I think that there's opportunities here where you're leaving yourself open and getting hit a little bit. So I like that this fight's probably going to be as close as possible, because you're just seeing very similar ways for both these guys to kind of win. And when that happens, I think that that's where you have the closest thing to a pick 'em in MMA. So I'm going to say that this one has to be within minus 150 of either guy. It's hard for me to pick right off the bat. Like I've said, check out, come Saturday, SookyMMA on Instagram. That's where all the picks are going to be up for the entire fight card. I got to get my juices flowing. I got to watch the weigh-ins. And so, we're going to keep that streak going as much as we can. I feel like we've put in that time and since we started doing this. So, let's take a quick look at, wow, this line's pretty much moving, identically throughout. So you got Jordan Wright and Jamie Pickett as minus 111, opening profiting at the same time, moving to minus 115. So I'm liking the way this fight looks. I probably won't touch this fight. I kind of like the under in case, Jordan Wright does land, and Jamie Pickett seems to have some of that power. And both these guys have been able to get rocked in their UFC careers. So I would actually consider the under. I don't think that's a bad bet. At the same time, you got to check the line, see what you feel. If you're a big juice guy that just likes to lay a little bit on big dogs, that's probably not your bet. But I think that this is going to be a fun fight. For any fight fan that just likes to watch guys throw down, if they don't finish, man, this fight's going to be just an absolute barn burner for 3 rounds. So enjoy the fights. I think